Welcome to episode 45 of Posture Labs and Alignment Fundamentals. My name is Emma. I'm your host. Thank you so much for joining me for this series of educational videos. In this episode, we're going to be going over two poses, Gomukhasana or cow face pose and Agni Stambhasana or fire log pose. Both are pretty similar, which is why I've chosen to put them in the same video. These are intense hip openers, so I would recommend being warmed up or not doing them first thing in the morning. Some simple cat-cows, hip circles, or maybe a full yoga practice before doing this would be helpful. Once you've done that and you feel ready, we'll go ahead and get started. So we're going to start with Agni Stambhasana actually, because I think it will open up your hips a little bit more. People often call this fire log pose or double pigeon pose. So if you think pigeon pose is a big hip opener, just wait until you do this one. I have a block here for assistance in case I need it. As it sounds, we're going to be stacking the shins like fire logs. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. I'm going to start with my right leg on the bottom. My foot's flexed. My shin is I'm not pulling my foot back towards me. My shin is going to be parallel with the mat in front of me. So if I'm facing the front of the mat, it'll be parallel with the front of the mat, not diagonal with the mat in front of you. So right shin out in front of me, foot flexed. Then I'm going to take my left foot, also flexed, on top of my right knee. It's really important to not go on the inside of the knee. You're not going to feel a lot here, and you're kind of just putting a lot of stress on your knee. So I want to make sure the bottom of my foot is lining up with the outside of my right knee. It's actually on top, not inside. That means my left knee will be directly over my right foot. So my shins are stacked. Both of them are parallel with the space out in front of me. I might even kind of wiggle my butt back a little bit so my sitting bones feel heavier. Now for me, my left knee, my top knee, doesn't even meet my right knee. For some people, you'll be able to push your knee all the way onto your foot, but don't force the pose. So for me, I already feel it's pretty intense here, a really intense hip opener. That's why I have the block. Option to put a block in between your bottom foot and your top knee so that your top knee can be pushing down into something without having to push all the way into your foot. So I already have my block on the lowest setting. You can stay there. If you don't have a block, you'll just be resting your foot, but be careful that it's not too much. What I sometimes like to do, I like to take my left hand and push on my left thigh, right hand on my left foot, kind of like you're pushing them down into the right thigh. Now again, to me this is enough. I don't need more. If you want more, you're working to get that left knee down to your right foot. Try to sit up tall. You're not really arching your back here, so you're not flaring your ribs out. Your spine should still be flat. Push your low back in and feel the back of your skull lift. Great, let's go ahead and do that on the other side. So I like to shake out the legs a little bit. And then we'll take that left shin on the bottom with the foot flex. Make sure it's parallel with the space out in front of you. My right foot also flex is going to be on top of my left knee. But the outside edge of my foot, so the bottom of my foot and the outside edge of my left knee are the same, not going on the inside. So directly stacked. That means my right knee is going to be directly over my left foot, and the same thing. The bottom of my left foot kind of lines up with my right knee. Now, I'm going to start by pushing my right hand gently into my right knee, seeing if I can assist with a little more opening. So I'm externally rotating my hips here. That means the inner thighs are kind of going outwards. So it might even be helpful on my right thigh to kind of help pull the thigh away. Option to put that block underneath my top knee and on top of my bottom foot, just so that my right knee can be resting on, pushing into something. Be careful about your bottom knee. If this is too much pressure on your bottom knee, you should skip this pose or at least come out of it a little bit. You could always put the block under your bottom knee and one under your top knee so that you have a block in both positions. That's going to make it a little bit less on both. You'll still feel a nice intense stretch on your hips. Let's go ahead and release, shake that out. So similarly, Gomukhasana is stacking, but this time you're stacking your knees one on top of the other. So we're going to start with that right leg on the bottom, left leg on the top. Now if you just swing your leg over, you might not be able to get that much stacking going on. So I actually like to lean my weight forward almost towards a tabletop. My knees are stacked, both knees are actually on the mat here, and then kick my feet away from each other. That way I can kind of sit back and my knees are a little bit more stacked. I could also use my hands. So my left hand, left knee, right hand, right knee. Push the knees a little bit so they stack more. Just be careful you're not pushing yourself too far. Then you kind of want to bring these feet back. The important part here is keeping both sitting bones on the mat. So it's easy for this top leg, that's my left leg. My left sitting bone usually wants to come up off the mat. Now I still feel the stretch is the thing, but I'm trying to sink that left sitting bone back down, and it's definitely more intense. Here, avoid rounding your backs. If you're slouching, you're definitely not getting as much out of the pose. You also don't want to be flaring your ribs out and arching your back. You're just sitting up tall, that's it. Now I got a few options with the arms. Traditionally, the top leg, that arm is going to lift up and over. So left hand to the middle of my upper back, right arm on the bottom, grabbing your fingertips. If you can't reach your fingertips, you can also use a handy towel or a strap. You could also just grab your shirts, or you don't even have to do this arm placement. Now, some teachers also teach the arms the opposite way. Left arm on the bottom, right arm on the top. To me, does it make a huge difference? Absolutely not, because hopefully you're going to be doing this pose on both sides. It is an intense pose, so you definitely don't just want to do it on one side. Even yourself out. I don't think it makes so much of a difference as to which arm is on top. So if you forget or if you mess up, honestly, don't worry about it. That's just even one of the arm options the traditional way. You could also, what I like to do is just grab the feet and kind of push them into the mat, hold them there. My feet, because my hips feel pretty tight, my feet like to slide forward. So for me, grabbing the feet, the intention behind that is just that I'm not letting them slide forward. I'm kind of keeping them where they are in place. You could also take eagle arms. So my left leg's on top, that means my left arm's going to be on the bottom, just like I would be in eagle pose. You could even fold yourself forward here. That is going to feel pretty intense. I don't like doing that because it's just too much for my hips. So give it a shot. If you like it, great. If not, don't worry about it. I'm sure there's other arm variations as well. You could definitely take a mudra here. You could walk your hands forward. That might feel nice on your hips. Be gentle. It doesn't need to be forceful. If you feel pressure in your knees, start to release, shake your legs out. Now we're going to do that on the other side. So my left leg's going to be on the bottom. And again, if I just kind of try to swing my right leg on top, I'm in more of like a seated twist, a Ardha Matsyadrasana, which is a great pose, but not the pose we're doing. So I like to actually shift forward towards like a tabletop. Kind of stack the knees so I can only really see my right knee right now. Kick the feet away from each other and then start to drop my butt back. Then I could shift forward again, maybe push the knees, right knee to the left knee to the right, to get them a little bit more stacked. Again, I like to grab the feet and just keep them grounded because for me, especially on this side, my top foot likes to swing forward. So grabbing the top foot can be kind of helpful. Notice here that right sitting bone, it really likes to lift up off of the mat. So you're going to think about sinking it down. You could even take your right hand kind of on your right thigh, work the external rotation, and also sink that right hip down. Now, same options with the arms. Right arm reach up and over, left arm reach down and under, grab fingertips or use a towel, or do that the other way. Or eagle arms, right arm on the bottom, maybe folding without eagle arms, or grabbing your feet. So there's so many endless options. Again, just because one teacher teaches it one way does not mean it's correct or incorrect. There's plenty of schools and lineages of yoga that are a little bit different. So just be open-minded when you go to a studio class, and if the teacher does it a little bit differently, that's totally fine. These are just some tips and tricks that I've learned on how to get into the pose. You can also do Gomukhasana on your back. So, Supta Gomukhasana. Now, you wouldn't do the arms, it would just be the legs. I oftentimes put this stretch in my class because it's a little more accessible. There's less pressure on your knee joints. So I like to think about, so you're on your back, cross your right leg over your left leg. Kick your feet in opposite directions. For me, I like to flex my feet here just to kind of reach them easier. My left hand will reach for my right ankle, my right hand will reach for my left ankle, and then I'm pulling the feet away from each other. Now, as I do this, I want to try to pull my tailbone back down, kind of tone my belly, and get my back flat on the mat. So I feel a stretch in the outer hips, but it's a little bit more controlled. You know, instead of using the weight of my body to get the stretch, I'm using the strength of my arms to get the stretch. So it's not going to be as intense. If you can't reach that bottom foot, again, you could always use maybe a towel or a strap to grab that one instead. And then do that on the other side as well. Left leg on top, kick your feet in opposite directions. The hands, so people get confused when I cue this, like where are my arms going? They're really just reaching forward, so it's just your legs that are crossed. Pull the feet in opposite directions, tailbone back down. If you can't reach that bottom foot, sometimes if your hips are tight, it feels too far, grab a towel or a strap, wrap it around your ankle or your foot, and there you go. You want to keep your shoulder blades head heavy on the mat. So Supta Gomukhasana. All right, hope you found this tutorial helpful. We covered a lot. Hopefully your hips feel awesome. If you have any questions about either of these poses or any of the variations I went over, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I hope to see you back next week for another class tutorial.